Well, thank you for hosting. This is a very impressive venue. Thanks to Google, and also a very impressive crowd. So I am here from an open source project called WeVote, and we started about 3 years ago. I'm having that experience where when you can hear yourself in the phone, so it's hard to, I'm just adjusting to that. We're a nonprofit, nonpartisan, open source movement, essentially. We have had over 70 volunteers contribute in some way or another, 27 of those being actual engineers and designers doing code check-ins. And we've been working very closely with Code for San Francisco at the Code for America offices. Very proud of it, a very diverse team, both from a gender perspective as well as from a nationality and a variety of other factors. I want to tell you the story about Lee. Now, Lee was 100 last year and had voted for every single presidential election that she could have voted for in her life. That's passion, that's commitment. What we're seeing in America is a different story, though. Even though this last year was surprisingly had record turnout, with close to 65% of the electorate actually casting a vote, that still leaves 45% of Americans, which when compared against other countries is extremely low. And I don't think it's that people don't care, and I don't think it's because of, well, there's about 20 different reasons when you look at it of why people don't vote, but most of those can be solved, we believe, through social interaction of some sort. And when you think about 14% of Americans actually cast the votes to elect about 90% of Congress, when you think about the change that can happen as more voters turn out and more voters vote for items all the way down ballot, I think we could see some real change in the country. A lot of people are confused. Highly educated people are confused about something like 30-plus ballot items on the California ballot this last election. We see the problem as not only voter confusion, but partially that's leading to low voter turnout, as well as a technology gap. A lot of the voter guides, a lot of the sites that inform voters really do kind of look like websites out of the 1990s. There's not a ton of open source involvement in voter turnout, partially because these are big events that happen every couple of years, and then everyone forgets about them for till the next election. So what we're striving to do is attack all three of these items. And we've got a theory of change about how to do that. So we're starting with voter guides that individuals can take ownership of their own personal voter guides. And this is literally it's a web page, just like Angel sites and MySpace back in the day, where you can actually build your own voter guide and share it either privately, we think that's important, or publicly. We also let organizations, the large organizations, million-plus members, not only send out to their members, but also get feedback, have a dialogue with their members about what's on the upcoming ballot so they can gather and make better voter guides. By really looking deeply at the psychology of how to reach out to people's networks, we believe that we'll make it very easy to do micro shares so people can actually share on particular issues they care about or particular candidates or measures. And then finally, by bringing more open source developers into tackling the problem and working on open source, then we think that we can actually close the technology gap and empower more organizations and more individuals and campaigns to reach more voters. So the way WeVote is going about it is we're making it very easy to view your ballot. Now, it's only been the last couple of years that you can actually even get your ballots in digital form across the whole country. And we're still, in a lot of cities, we're still not getting ballot data all the way down. I want to give a shout out. I'll show some logos later in the presentation, but there's a lot of nonprofits as well as companies that are working to make it available and free, Google being one of them. Google Civic has done some amazing work in making all this ballot data available. Another thing is that right now there's very few apps where you can actually see what's on your ballot nationwide. So we work very closely by integrating with all of the major, or we're working towards integrating with all the major social networks. Currently, we're with Twitter and Facebook. We've gathered thousands of voter guides, and we feel that it's important to let friends be able to communicate privately. And then finally, being able to share your vision in a variety of ways, privately or publicly. We have tools that do that. And we think it's important to actually influence votes across party lines as well, but across state lines, and empower their voters to make their own decisions. So we start with a voter guide, and we have a voter guide tool that anyone can actually go. If you sign in with Twitter, for example, you can actually set up your own ballot guide or voter guide. We then, when you look at from a prop perspective, a proposition or a candidate, we then show you the opinions of other organizations that you can follow. And that makes it very easy to start to build up a position bar. You can see this green. Right now, this particular one's probably not the best example because it's all green based on one particular network. But when you look down an entire ballot, you can start to see what your network is leaning towards. And for example, my wife and I used this for the 2016 election, and Prop 54 was very interesting. It was a very a lot of split opinions about that. So that's the one that we actually spent most of our time researching. And my wife actually wrote a really impassioned plea about one of the other propositions further down. She wrote like a page and a half. I was really impressed. So essentially what we're trying to solve is the problem of how do we empower other voters to mobilize their friends. So as opposed to trying to have one organization that's top-down saying you should vote, we're trying to turn everybody into mobilizers. Now, we don't have this solved, by no stretch of the imagination, completely solved. So that's part of the value of the open source. Piece of it is that we have design sprints where we actually tackle very specific design challenges of how can we increase a turnout in a small election? How do we get people to go all the way down the ballot? So it's a really fun project to work on. Some of the elements of how we as a country can match Lee's passion is voting in community. Actually, one of our partners is a really cool organization that they're actually able to increase turnout by something like 3.5 percentage points. They're called Vote Together, by throwing a party at the polling place. And it actually works. It's pretty fun. Also creating a marketplace of ideas. Right now, there's a lot of sound bites that mobilize people to not vote for certain candidates and vote for others. I think having a place where people can actually put up concise arguments that can be spread widely and then debated within a friendly context. Because one of the problems with public network debate about politics is you end up having very widespread conversations where you're arguing across ideological lines. We think there's a lot of value in letting you choose who you want to have your conversations with. And then also the 8 minutes or less is one of our mantras, is trying to get the entire, is it possible to realize, oh my goodness, I need to vote, and 8 minutes later have a pretty darn informed opinion about most everything on your ballot based on your network's opinions. We think that it is possible. And then also the problem of voting with confidence, or not voting with confidence, is that can't remember an election where I didn't feel like I was probably off on one or two items, and that's part of what we're trying to solve as well, is bringing up your sense of understanding what you're actually voting on. So we ran some initial user testing for the 2016 election. The version that we were running at the time was nowhere near as far along as it is now, but we still had 160 voters use it. And in 2 days, those 160 voters entered 961 of their own positions that they were sharing with their friends versus 53 groups worth of positions, 691 positions. So it was a real strong confirmation of the power of individuals sharing their opinions and chatting. So just on a high level, our timeline, we started we started developing the technology in 2015, and we're running our first national, well, it's in New York, beta test. Public, I should say, is the word I'm looking for. We're planning to do a nationwide launch next year, iOS, Android, and web. And then by 2020, we we would like to be able to say that we're the primary voter guide that advocacy organizations and individuals are using. So very cool technology stack. I love it. I learn something every day. React Native, we're definitely looking for React Native folks or React folks. We have quite a bit of expertise in Python and Django right now, so if you're interested in that, we can definitely talk, but our main needs are React Native and then React, as well as iPhone and Android native app developers who have any experience with React Native. Could not be doing what we're doing. As I said, it's just the last couple of years that I think that this is even possible as an open source project. A lot of nonprofits that are working without very much public kudos. There's about 35 different groups, I would say, across the country that are on shoestring budgets doing this, and I just want to give a shout out to some of these organizations. This week, how's my time, by the way? I took off my watch because it was vibrating. 2 minutes? 2 minutes, thank you. So if you go to wevotesf.org, I set up a little wiki page where you can learn about how you can get involved in this next week. We have Monday through Friday Google Hangouts that if you send me an email off of that WeVoteSF page, I'll invite you to. We also meet every Wednesday night at Code for San Francisco, especially this week. We are working on the New York election, so it's actually grounded in reality. And there's some of our social media information. Do I have time for any quick questions, or are we a no question zone? One question? What's that? Okay, sounds good. So if you can come find me afterwards, I'm the one wearing the blue checkered shirt. Thank you.